Hi everyone, good morning. Welcome to half an hour of Pilates. Let's roll down onto our backs to begin. So make your way into your spinal twist. Anything that you want to do to begin. I like to always suggest, just so you have something in your back pocket. I don't know if you can see me 100%. Let me just adjust that ever so slightly. There we go. Okay. Do that again. Okay, so knees into the chest, getting in some spinal twists, and anything else that you feel like getting out of your system from your back. You do want to focus on warming up your hips, warming up your low back. And when you are ready, we make our way up and over onto our hands and knees. This is also ponytail time if you do not have your hair secured just yet. Okay, so spend a moment doing some cat-cow. Any other movements you want to do, want to get out of your system, go ahead and do it. Okay, from here, making your way into your lunge. So let's bring the left foot forward, sink into our lunge, and we're going to bring the hands right down onto the mat and take a second to move through just a little bit of a hamstring warm-up to start. So we're back and forth. Taking a moment, pausing in your hamstring stretch. You move your fingers back wherever you need them to be to help you feel stable, and you lift your tailbone up towards the ceiling. Stay open through the collarbone. And then come forward now into your deeper hip stretch, right, for here. So hands onto your thighs. Stay in your lunge. We're going to lift up and back. I don't know if my full giant body is going to fit into the frame here, but we'll try. Lift up, and now elbow onto your thigh. So if you see it this way, I'm going to bring my elbow down onto the thigh. This arm is going to reach up and over. I know I'm not fitting into the frame here, right? So to do it like this, if we're talking about this half up, you're doing this, right? So it's that. With your lunge, it's just not all fitting in at the same time. Just so you get that nice deep stretch on the right side. Okay, hands to the mat, tuck the toes, step yourself back into plank. Push the mat away from you, right onto the tips of your toes. Let's bring our knee to elbow back, so a little bit out to the side, not into the chest this time. Out to the side, out to the side. A little bit of sort of swoop out. Last ones. 1, 2. Toes to the mat, knees to the mat, child's pose. Other foot comes forward. And your arms, your hands frame your foot. Your arms are on either side of your leg. We're going to walk ourselves 1, 2 back and 1, 2 forward. Pausing here, digging the heels down, lifting the tailbone, pulling the toes towards the shins, creating that stretch down the back of the leg. And then coming forward, hands onto the thighs, bring the shoulders back over top of the hips. All right, just making sure you're not at the absolute deepest part of your lunge, and then lifting your arms up and back. Now, release your hands back onto your thighs, elbow onto your thigh, and your arm comes up and over. So if you see it this way, elbow on the thigh, and my arm is reaching up and over. Right, this is what's happening from the waist up. Right, but you're just including your lunge with that. I just can't fit my giant body onto frame lunge shot. All right, and then hands onto either side of your thigh. Tuck the back toe, step that front foot back. And again, instead of coming in towards the chest, you're just going to bring it out towards your underarm instead. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, last ones. Toes to the mat, knees to the mat, child's pose. Come forward, counter stretch, upward dog. Push back into child's pose. And then let's come all the way down onto our stomachs. Take a moment, figure out your resting pose. How do you prefer to rest? Do you want to move an invisible tail side to side? You should be moving an invisible tail side to side. Figure out actually if you want your arms long beside you or if you're doing stacked hands, whatever feels best. And then we build it up from the easiest one. So we start with our modified skydiver. So arms long beside you, anchor your hips, and float everything up. If we can, maybe straightening the legs, keeping the thighs lifted. So when I'm lifting up this high, now I'm definitely starting to squeeze my butt and pull my belly button up into the spine. Hold it for 3, hold it for 2, and lower. Stack the hands, rest the chin, the forehead, your cheek on your hands, and move your invisible tail side to side. Bring the arms out, bring your heel towards your butt. Heel towards your butt. So grab the foot, push the foot into the hand, float the knee and the thigh off the mat. Look out over those front fingertips. And keep both of your hips anchored. If you're lifting your right leg, you want to be anchoring your left hip. Both of your hips are anchored, but do press down into your left hip a bit more. Inhale, and then release. Same thing on the other side. Push the foot into the hand, float the knee and the thigh up off the mat. Inhale. Release it out, elbows wide, stack the hands, rest the chin or the forehead on the hands and move your invisible tail side to side. And then heels towards the butt, arms long beside us, palms facing up. Anchor the hips. No, actually before that, bring your knees as wide as you need to reach around and grab a hold of your feet. Bring your knees close, push your feet into your hands and float everything up. So once I'm here, now I'm going to definitely squeeze my butt. Keep my knees close, like I'm holding onto an orange in between my knees. And now when you push your feet into your hands, send everything up and back, right? So we go up and back. Inhale and release. Move that invisible tail side to side. And then back into a child's pose. And let's transition into a seated position, legs out in front of us. Sneak some water. Okay. So slower, all the way down. Bring your heels to your middle fingers. Remember that you want to learn to create that imprint pelvis. What we mean by that is if you're here, you're getting rid of any arching, any daylight between the small of the back and the mat. We don't want this. So I'm going to anchor my low back down. What that does, it creates a pelvic tilt. My core, my deep abdominal muscles, those deep down corset ones fire up. And that's what we want. Activation in your transverse abdominis. Begin to peel up from your tailbone. And you have to learn to maintain your maintain your tilt as you lift. Not so much as you lower. It's not so important as you're lowering, but when you're lifting, you have to be tilting in that certain way. You need to find out the positioning of your feet and your knees. So take a moment to really get this one figured out. Adjust where your heels are, adjust where your big toes point, and adjust where your knees need to be. Like, are they right over top of your heels, or are they just like slightly wider? And then arms should be a little bit of ways away from you, just so that you're not tempted to sneak the shoulders under the body. We're gonna lift and pause. Okay, activating those arms, really pressing into the arms. And in particular, you're gonna press into your right arm as you lift your right leg. So your hip shouldn't drop, right? You're pressing into your right arm to keep your right hip up in line with the left. And when I look at my thigh, I do not see my calf or my heel. It's hidden behind the thigh. Bring the foot back down. Float the other leg up. If I'm lifting my left leg, I'm bringing I'm pushing down into my left arm and I'm making sure my knee is over my hip, tap and heel are hidden behind the thigh. So let's just keep going with this movement nice and slow, transitioning your weight from one foot to the other, keeping the hips lifted and level. And then let's pause the next time we have our right leg in the air, holding here, knee over top of your hip, calf and heel hidden behind the thigh, digging down into that arm, nice and slow. We're going to vertebrae by vertebrae lower, vertebrae by vertebrae lift. So lots of pressure and pushing down into my arm and my heel. Keeping my hips level the whole time. Lifting, lowering 2 more, float up, float down, last ones. Float up and pause, bring your foot to the mat, and then take a moment here to just sort of reset. So make sure you've got your pelvic tilt. My belly is pulled in and I'm doing that tilt enough that I can create and feel and keep a bit of tension right in the sort of lower part of my pelvis. And I'm going to float my other leg up now. So I'm going to dig into that left arm to keep my left hip up in line with the right. I don't want to see my left calf or heel. They're staying hidden behind the thigh. My right glutes are doing a lot of the work here. Okay, keeping my hips level, vertebrae by vertebrae lower, vertebrae by vertebrae lift. Noticing that even here, we're not switching from hip rolls into hip lifts. We're still rolling, right? Lifting and lowering, going nice and slow. Lift and lower, 3 more. Up and down, last ones. Lift and lower. We're gonna bring it up, bring the foot down to the mat. Point the toes and the knees forward, knees over the hips, belly button in. We're going to lower mid back first, tailbone last. Knees into your chest. Take a second, draw your circles on the ceiling. Bring your right leg out, left knee in, out towards the underarm, in towards the midline. You want to draw smiles and frowns with your left knee. Reach the toes up to the ceiling, elbows out to the side. Use a bit of arm strength. Use the arms, pull the leg in, create a stretch. That this is uncomfortable. And then that's not quite as terrible. Okay, doing just a few leg circles. So drawing circles on the ceiling with your toes, with your knees, whatever you want to draw with, as long as it starts over top of your hip. Right, so if you're out here to have your leg straight, you don't want to do that. You're going to bend your leg as much as you need to at least have your knee over your hip and then draw. And if you really wanted to, some people, when they modify, will keep the heel low. That's fine too. I'm not mad at that if you needed to do that. Okay, pause up top and switch, go the opposite way. So start small again. That foot that's on the mat stays flexed. I don't think you can see it right now, but this foot, you keep it flexed. For 3, 2, and 1. Knees in. Knee up towards your underarm, in towards your midline, and switch. So do your smiles and your frowns first. Create a bit of a stretch, strengthening stretch, warm up for your hip. Reach the toes up, elbows out. Use your arms. Make this uncomfortable for the hamstring. This is quite a deep stretch so that when we release, this is not quite as intense. And then from here, starting to do a few circles. Three, 2, and 1. Pause, go the opposite way. Two, last one. Bring it up, bring your knee in. Both knees in. Reach your heels up. Number 1 rule of Pilates, the moment both of our legs are in the air, we do not let our low back arch off of the mat. So the heels are up. Let's just anchor our low back down. So we create that tilt. That activates the deep abdominal muscles. We should have a bit of tension in our core. We want it in our core, not in our low back. So arms a bit of ways away from the body. And you're going to start to do double leg circles. Now, these will get intense for the most advanced of Pilates practitioners, if you will. So you want to really stay, don't go too deep and don't go too wide. Be very kind of conservative with your movements here. So I'm only lowering to about here. I'm separating my heels, maybe like 2 fists in between my feet, maybe a bit wider, and lifting. Making sure that as the heels are lowering, the back isn't arching off the mat. You're keeping your back connected as we lower and lift. Keep these nice and slow. Your body wants you to rush. Your body wants you to use momentum to bring the legs back up. So just make sure the whole thing is slow, like you're moving in slow motion. And then we're just going to pause and go the opposite way. All right, last ones. Knees in, draw your circles on the ceiling. Feel the head, neck, and shoulders up. Shoulders down away from the ears. All right, arms come up and over. Let the head get nice and heavy in the hands. Belly button in. Start to curl the knees in. Release slightly. What you're going for here is that lift of your tailbone and lower. What we don't want to do is let our knees go back out over the hips. So the whole point of this is keeping those knees in nice and close to your face. Curl it and hold and release. You could always stay doing these ones, or you're going to lift your heels up, whatever that means for you. Maybe they look like this. Maybe you're completely straightening your legs. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Just lift your heels up a bit, however you want to, and do the same thing. Curl and hold. It's the hold that's important. That's what you have to learn. That's where the hard part is. That's what's hard. So you're curling and holding and releasing, because it's in that hold, right? So we curl and hold. Now I got to separate my feet again, and I lower slightly, just a little bit, because we don't go too low. Touch your feet, slowly lift, slowly do your tailbone curl up and switch your feet. Watch that our neck is staying nice and long. Your shoulders try really hard to come up by the ears, just to keep that length in your neck. Let's pause next time our feet are touching. So my feet are touching. We're going to just pause here. Go the opposite direction. I'm going to lower just a little bit, not a whole lot. Lower, separate, slowly lift, slowly curl up, touch, lower, just a little bit, separate, slowly lift, curl up. So keep moving. Do this little sequence. And this gets real intense real soon, right? That's why you're not going too wide with your feet, because your knees will roll out. That's why you're not going too low with your heels, because you'll tire out too soon. 2 more. Last ones. All right, knees in, lower down. Give yourself a break. And let's roll onto our side. Pause. Okay, so move yourself to the back of your mat and look and see that your elbow, your shoulder, and your hip all line up with that back edge of your mat. Bring your knees forward out in front of you until your thighs are parallel to the top of the mat, and have your shins line up to the long edge of the mat. So hand flat on the mat right up against you, and you're going to look and see that your knees are perfectly stacked. If your knees are stacked, it's a pretty good indication that your hips are stacked. So from here, you're going to lift, keeping the calf and the heel hidden behind the thigh, and lower. Lift and pause, and lower. So it's not important how high you get your knee. You want to keep your hips stacked. Right? So it doesn't matter if you're pointing your knee up to the ceiling. What matters is that you learn to lift high enough where the hips stay stacked. And lower. And remember, as always, you do that lift and hold, and lower. Lift and hold, and lower. All right, last ones. Lift and hold, and lower. Bring your arm out, extend your legs. We're gonna lift up onto our forearm. So bring the elbow in so that it's not necessarily right underneath your shoulder, right? This is what right underneath the shoulder is. I actually want you to bring it in a little bit closer. Think of this bottom heel, right? This leg. You're gonna bring that heel back until your heel is in line with your knee. So if you were to see it this way, you're gonna bring this bottom heel back until it's lined up with your knee, which you can't see. Right, all right. Let's just verbally cue this, okay? So I'm bringing that bottom heel behind my knee. Got my elbow in just a little bit closer. So we're gonna lift up, and now my shoulder is over my elbow. I don't know if you can see because it's just like a sea of gray. So let's do this. All right, so that's a little bit closer. Again, we're gonna lift. So now I've got my shoulder over my elbow. I wanna roll top, shoulder, and hip forward enough that the inside of that foot is resting flat on the mat. Okay, so thinking here that the neck stays long, move your shoulders away from your ears and keep that spot in between your shoulder blades nice and close. Now, option to stay here. If you wanted to make this a little more intense, what we're gonna do is sneak that foot forward slightly and extend the bottom foot out so that the toes come to the heels. And then again, lift up. You're keeping your tilt, top shoulder and hip are stacked over your bottom hips, holding here. Now you can stay here or add in just a little lift of just the hips, okay? For 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Bring your butt down. Bring your heels towards your butt. Push into this forearm, lift up, and reach your arm up and over your head towards your heels, towards your knees. So you create that counter stretch on this side, same side of your obliques. And then you can set back up fairly easy here as well. So bring it back down onto your forearms, extend your legs out. Okay, so remember that you don't want to begin with your elbow under your shoulder. If you do that, when you lift up, you're going to be on a weird angle, and that is a great way to add tension into your shoulder. So that's why you have to think of these subtle little alignment points before we lift up. So let's bring the elbow in. It looks weird, right? You're like, there's no way that that's right, but it will work a bit better. So lift up. You want your shoulder over your elbow. Top shoulder and hip usually want to roll back quite a bit here. And your toes will tell you where your hip, where everything's pointing, right? So you're going to roll that forward until the inside of that foot touches the floor. And then we're lifting. I'm making sure I'm not arching my back. My calf, my heel are hidden behind my thigh. Make sure your thighs line up. Okay, if you want to stay in here or maybe stepping that bottom foot out. And again, 5 little lifts of the hips for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Butt to the mat, heels to the butt. Bring the arms up and over. And then you're just going to switch into the same thing on the other side. So just move your feet to the other end of your mat. Lower down, and again, you're going to use that back edge of your mat. You're going to use both edges of your mat to just sort of gauge your alignment. Okay, so knees are stacked, thighs are a little parallel to the top of the mat. Starting to lift and hold, and low. Lift and hold, and low. And it is not about pointing the knee up towards the ceiling. Remember, it is about keeping your hips stacked. Lift and hold and lower. And you don't want to be staring at your thigh the whole time, but you do need to glance every once in a while and see that the calf and the heel are hidden behind the thigh. Two more. Last ones. Lift and hold and lower. Okay, extend your arm out. Straighten your legs. Come up onto your forearms. And remember, you don't want to start here with your elbow right underneath because your your shoulder's going to pull back once you lift. So you've got to factor that into your setup. You got to have your elbow in a bit closer. Now also, look, see that your heels, your knees, your hips are lined up so that we're starting properly. And then pull that back heel back until it is right behind your knee. So now, lift up. Okay, so I've got my shoulder over my elbow now. And flex that top foot. The inside of your foot should be resting on the mat, just so you see that here, right? You don't want your toes pointing up. You want inside of your foot, resting on the mat. Now you could stay here. This might be challenging enough for you, and that's fine. Just work at nailing your alignment here. Or if you want, you step that bottom foot out and you bring the toes to the heels. So I lift, I make sure I'm keeping my pelvic tilt. Everything's stacked. I'm not letting top shoulder and hip roll back at all either. And then 5 little micro lifts of just the hips, right? I don't want to move from the waist to the top of the head. I'm moving just from my waist down for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hips to the mat. So push into your forearm to lift up. Bring your heels to your butt and then reach up and over your head. Inhale into that nice deep stretch down the left side, right? Those obliques you're just working. And let's do that again. Last ones. Bring it down. So learn how to set it up here. Get real familiar with this. Straighten your legs out. And remember, you don't want to start here. The trick to this is elbow in a little bit closer to you, so that when you lift up, you end up with your shoulder over your elbow. Roll your top shoulder and hip forward. Remember, if you want that bottom knee on the mat, it's fine. Just get your heel back behind your knee. So we lift, and again, doing 5 little lifts for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hips to the mat, heels to the butt. Bring it up and over. All right, so that's just a quick little baby taste of the side dolphin plank pulses that we do. We do kind of safely speed those up. And they are really good for your core when we're getting into those summer months. Okay, let's, again, sip our drink. Send yourself back into a child's pose. And bring your right foot to the outside of your right hand. So you want wide hands. If you see it this way, let's see how much of it. You see in this spot, right? I don't want to be like this. I want wide hands. I want to be here. Keep that shoulder to knee connection, and then turn the toes and the knees out slightly. If that's what you want, you have to really do whatever feels best for your hips here. This can be an intense hip stretch. So things or stretches like pigeon and like lizard, these ones, they can be rather intense on your hips, in your sciatic region, if you will. So if you are one of those people that doesn't love this stretch, what I would do is still do it, but find something that allows you to rest your elbows, right? So if you do it like this is game changer. It just allows you to support yourself without crunching down into your back. So I'm a really big fan of these. And unfortunately, we just don't have something like a fleur-de-lis ottoman in the gym. There's just none of those lying around. So that's why use something around your house to help if you need to. I'm cueing a lizard, but in my classes, once we get to hip portion, I just like to tell people, do whatever you want to do. Some people want to do pigeon. Some people want to do a thread the needle from their back. That's fine. Figure out how you want to stretch your hips and do it. And then we'll tuck the back toes, lift the back knee, shift your weight forward, and step that front foot back. Hold in your dolphin plank here. Look at your hands. Have your palms flat. Have your wrists, elbows, and shoulders lined up. Inhale, knees to the mat. Push it back into child's pose. And then same thing with the other foot. So I'm going to come forward. So step it forward. One thing you want to do, we don't stay here with this, right? You see how this back thigh is vertical? That's not the hip stretch you want. But once your hands and your foot are set up, adjust your back knee. Move that back to make it a bit more intense. Make sure your hands are nice and wide. And again, if this isn't right for you, don't do it, but find some kind of stretch for your hips to do, even if it's thread the needle from your back or pigeon, but figure out something to do. Or use a prop. Maybe you want to turn towards your legs. Some people like to work it coming down onto their forearms, whatever you want to do. If you do come onto your forearms, you should still have your elbows lined up with your foot. So it's either my hands, right, like my wrists, or my elbows that are lined up with the foot. And again, when I transition back, I usually do it from one forearm just because I'm kind of lazy. So tuck the back toes. Lift the back knee, shift your weight forward. I'm going to push into my fingertips and just step that front foot back. So hold in your dolphin plank. Remember, there's absolutely none of this That's not plank. That's feeling it in the back. That's with the tuck the tailbone and puff up that spot in between the shoulder blades is about. You got to basically make your butt look as flat as you can. Inhale, knees to the mat, and push it back into child's pose. One more time, counter stretch your plank with an upward dog. Push the mat away from you. Keep your neck nice and long. Inhale. Knees to the mat, child's pose. And then from here, transition into a seated position. Okay, so from your seated position, from a cross-legged position, let's just extend the left leg out. So when you do these, the trick to this is to look at, think of where your hips are, and think of where your knees are. Your knees should be out wider than your hips. So this is my hips, my knees are out here, right? Okay, so right hip is gonna stay on the mat. Bring the left arm up and over the head. Don't worry too much about touching your fingers to your toes. That will come. And you have to be aware of how your shoulder feels here. For some people, this is not gonna feel great. And what you'll do is maybe opt instead for a demi-bun, right? Where those fingertips come around to your opposite hip crease. What we're looking for here is a stretch in what I typically refer to as the muffin top region, right? Like this area here. I'm sure it has something else that it's called, a more medical term, but I call it the muffin top. So that is what you are stretching. Okay, come back up, and then let's just switch. So bring your foot out, and remember, look at where your hips are versus your knees. That's what you're setting up here. So I wanna make sure my left hip is staying on the mat. I'm gonna bring my left arm up and over, and I feel like this is where you feel what we call your Cirque du Soleil side, which is that super flexible, where you're like, wow, look at me, look at the stretches I can do, and then your Tin Man side, where you get snatched back to reality, and you're like, oh no, this is a bit harder. Right? So everyone has that. And again, it's a deep, but not in the wrong kind of way stretch. I mean, I wouldn't even classify it as urgent. It's a stretch. I definitely feel it, but it's not stabby or fiery or urgent. If you feel that in your shoulder, you might want to just do a demi-bun. Bring your fingertips around to your opposite hip crease. Good. And then bring it back up, bring your hands behind you, bring your feet flat, let your knees flap around to the left and to the right. Oh, we didn't do a spinal twist. Sorry, what am I thinking? Okay, come back into seated. So bring your fingertips out into either side of you and do yourself a favor, look down and see that your wrists are lined up with your hips. Okay, so from here, right hand to your left knee and then left hand farther behind you. Inhale to lengthen, exhale to twist. Come back to center. Left hand to the right knee, right hand behind us. Inhale to lengthen, exhale to twist. And then come back to center, hands behind us. Feet flat, let your knees flat to the left and to the right. And there we go, everyone. Have a lovely Wednesday. I think just Wednesday, yeah. Have a lovely Wednesday morning, afternoon, and evening. And I will see you in a couple weeks. All right? Good work, everyone.